Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. My name is David Sanders and I'm the president of the Board of Trustees for the UUFC. I'm here today to bring you some announcements as well as some opening words. But before I start, I'd like to thank each one of you for joining us today. Happy Easter, happy Passover, happy Ramadan. I hope that each of you are healthy and well as for your families. I also want to thank each one of you for your continued support through your pledges to our church. As you know, our expenses haven't stopped, even though our services in the sanctuary stopped. We still have a mortgage, we still have utility payments, and our board has decided to minimize the impact economically on our paid staff by continuing to pay our paid staff for their services. So I thank each one of you for your continued support, and I encourage you, if you are able, to help slightly increase your pledge over the next month or two to help offset the loss in pledges from those that are economically impacted by the coronavirus. So thank you all, and welcome to our service today. Each Sunday, you're going to hear the Gathering the Spirit hymn as our prelude. That hymn was chosen to remind us that we do not gather physically, but we do gather in spirit. We invite you to find your chalice or a candle that you may light during our community chalice lighting. Following the service and following your flower gathering, you're invited to join us for a social time via Zoom. The link and password are contained in your weekly connection, which you received on Saturday. Also in the weekly connection is the link and password to participate in Tuesday Tea Time with Terre. Try saying that 3 times fast. Both the social time and the Tuesday gathering will be held every week until we can physically gather together again. I also want to express many thanks to Petra Bear, who tirelessly works to weave together multiple video files and audio files to help make this service possible every Sunday for us. I also want to thank Susan Chandler for her beautiful singing voice and Corey Dodgens for his continued talent on the piano. Now I invite you to take a couple of deep breaths, deep cleansing breaths, leaving behind your worries so that you may enter into a spirit of worship with me and our community joined together in spirit. Now I'll share with you our opening words. It's called Grounding in Our Faith by Alice Anacheka-Nassaman. In a time of uncertainty, when everything around us is changing constantly, each day new developments, rising numbers, changing guidelines, when the world we live in suddenly seems upside down and topsy-turvy, we light our chalice to remind ourselves of our grounding in our faith. We remember that the flaming chalice came into being as a beacon of hope during World War II, a secret symbol that offered help. In the midst of it all, we will wrap ourselves in the warm light of a familiar flame, a reminder of the strength that emerges when and however we come together in community.
invite us now to light the chalice of our faith as we share the words of our affirmation. We gather together in a spirit of love, with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another. We gather in spirit once again to remember the joys and sorrows of members and friends and with our larger community. Because our service will end up being a YouTube video, I will not share names or personal joys and concerns today. What we share would be open to the world rather than held within our community. So I ask you to go to your weekly Connection e-news and to, in your own way, honor the personal joys and concerns shared there. Yet there are still powerful feelings and needs that we need to share because we are members of our community, state, nation, and our world. We know that there are signs of hope as more people cooperate with the directions of medical and governmental leaders, yet we are still vulnerable. I'm thankful that members of our congregation, blessedly, have been spared so far from COVID-19, yet I know that there are parents, in-laws, and grandchildren of those in our fellowship who are now suffering and are fragile. So we hold in our hearts those loved ones and all those who are suffering from COVID-19. Our fears and worries are well-founded, yet we need not turn our lives over to that fear and anxiety. For many of us, this week marked the reality that we have many more weeks ahead before we can safely re-enter the world with friends and loved ones. We are now wondering how long activities will need to be postponed or shifted to another season. I hope that each of us is finding new ways to connect with family and friends. Today, we also want to hold up the women and children who are more at risk now for abuse because they're confined with their abusers. We are so grateful and thankful for agencies that seek to care for those who are vulnerable, including the increasing number of people who are hungry and the homeless. These are difficult times, precarious times. In the midst of all this suffering, we are also keenly aware of the blessings in our lives. Every day, I'm so grateful that we live surrounded by the beauty of nature. We are aware of the blessing of friends and family, the gift of community. Let us find time each day to sit in gratitude for all that we still receive, have always received from the abundance of life. In that spirit, let us take a few moments of silent meditation to hold all this in our hearts. Spirit of love and life. We come today with a heart full of different kinds of feelings. Yes, gratitude, relief, hopefully that our families and friends are untouched at this point. Worry about jobs and perhaps how we're going to pay the bills, and our hearts are often heavy these days. And so we need to take time to feel what is in our hearts and minds. We know we need to find spaces where we can be at peace and find joy and wonder in each day. We give thanks for the connections we are making with others, perhaps for renewing old friendships that we've been too busy to connect with. We hold up our concern for all of those people, both in the medical profession and postal carriers, and the wonderful people who are still working in restaurants and grocery stores, who are caring for us in so many ways. And yet, until now, we may not have really noticed or paid attention to how these people who are now more vulnerable have helped to make our lives better. May we find strength among those we care about, find strength and perseverance. May we find ways to laugh every day, even in the midst of the turmoil. We are so grateful, even as we are so worried. Let us find peace in every day. Blessed be. Amen. Today, we honor the wisdom found in the ethical teachings of Rabbi Jesus, whose name was Yeshua in Aramaic and Isa in Arabic. Our belief of who Jesus was is very different from the traditional Western Christian church that celebrates Easter today. Because Unitarian Universalists do not believe in original sin, the concept of blood sacrifice is outside our understanding of the original blessing of creation, found within the sacred unity of all that is. Rather, we celebrate the tenacity of life unfolding all around us. This day also stands in the midst of the Jewish celebration of Passover. The Eastern Christian Church will celebrate wrong season. We'll celebrate Easter next week. For Unitarian Universalists, our flower communion ritual is connected to the messages of hope and promise of liberation found in these religious seasons for Christians and Jews. The ritual itself, as most of you know, is really quite simple. Traditionally, each person brings a flower or flowers to share with others during the service. The flowers are blessed, and each of us chooses a flower to take home. The flower is to remind us of our own unique beauty and worth. Last year, when we shared the ritual, our dear children helped bless the flowers, imparting to them wishes for our joy, peace, and happiness. I hope that blessing of our flowers today will be carried over from last year. Because today, obviously, we will not be able to do that together. Though after the service, you will be invited to choose a flower that speaks to you from your yard or the roadside, where it's okay to pick a flower. And we will all receive the blessing for our flowers and for us. A beautiful song entitled Blessing that Susan Chandler will sing to us. Today, as we sit with our own worries in our personal lives that maybe have been turned upside down, I want to share some of the story of how the flower communion ritual came to be and why it is important. It was important for the people who originally participated. And a little bit about the story of Norbert Chopek, who began the flower communion ritual. It was created by Norbert Chopek. He was born in the Czech Republic in 1870 and eventually immigrated to the United States because his social activism in Czechoslovakia had triggered government inspection of what he was doing, which was very dangerous at that point. After coming to the United States, Chopek found the Baptist church in which he had been ordained to be too conservative and intolerant of his liberal thinking. He and his wife, Maja, needed and sought a faith community in keeping with their beliefs. So what they did, which I think is very creative, they sent their children, they had several children, out to different Sunday schools, and the children helped them find the Unitarian Church. It was long before the Unitarian Church and the Universalist Church merged. After seminary and ordination as a Unitarian minister, Chopek began his ministry here in America, and soon after, Maja became a Unitarian minister also. Then Norbert and Maja began to feel the draw back to their homeland because they felt like this newfound message would be an important one for the people of Czechoslovakia. So in 1921, they returned and founded a church in Prague. Their personal theological belief was one of pure rational humanism. Their services were very simple. They had no music, no liturgy. It was primarily Norbert speaking through the whole service. I don't think I could get away with that on Sunday morning, but he soon realized that a religion that spoke only to the head and not also to the heart didn't speak to the whole person. So the creation of the flower ritual was a way to remind people of that heart place, to remind them of their unique dignity and worth and beauty. Retired Minister James Ford writes this about the ritual. People brought flowers to the church. They were gathered together, they were blessed, and then the people were given the flowers, a different one for each person who took them home. There was something in this ceremony that fed the hearts of people. Those who participated found it seemed equally important to the sermon that was feeding their minds. Something rich had happened. Richard Henry writes, Norbert Chapek celebrated the hidden cry for harmony with the infinite in every soul. Every person, he wrote, is an embodiment of God, and in every one of us, God struggles for higher expression. Religion, he said, can never die because human beings cannot but be religious regardless of the form of their religion. Religion should, before all else, provide that inner harmony, which is the precondition of a strong character, good health, joyful moods, and victorious creative life. We don't often think about those preconditions: strong character, good health, joyful moods, and victorious creative life. As World War II approached, Maja felt she needed to take the children back to the United States for safety. But Norbert and one of their daughters stayed in Prague because they felt like they needed to help care for the people of their congregation. Eventually, his liberal message of the preciousness and unique nature of each human being and his vocal support of those who were suffering reached the ears of the Nazis. He was arrested, suffered, and died in Dachau in 1942. His wife, Maja, carried on the tradition of the flower communion, and its message has spread to UU communities throughout North America and other countries. Norbert Chapek offered this simple ritual to his people and to us as a reminder that no matter whatever feels like it's overshadowing our lives, there is still beauty and joy. The essence of the flower communion is to remind us of our worth and dignity. It reminds us that despite the fears and worries that overtake us, there's something more. There's beauty and wonder, even in times of distress. Its message is that you are a blessing to the world. Just let that sit in your heart for a moment. What does it mean right now for you and for me to be a blessing? Right now, sitting in our homes, perhaps worn out or trying to remember what day you washed your hair or washed your clothes, or realize that you only have one nerve left that hasn't been stepped on today, or that you're having trouble sleeping. Even with all of this, you are a blessing, just like you are this minute. And you need to take some time to realize whatever is happening on the outside, you are a blessing. And that core understanding of who you are, that's the eye of the hurricane. It is that calm place around which The turbulence can rage and not overwhelm us. During the season of renewal, when flowers are all around us, let us find ways to return to that calm place when we're feeling overwhelmed. When you see the wisteria, the azaleas, the abundance of flowers that pervade our community this week, let us remember that we are also a blessing to others. May the beauty around us and within us give us hope in the midst of uncertainty. I encourage you at the end of the service to go out to find a flower and bring it back to your home. You might want to take a minute to find the reflection for this time in the weekly connection. The poem is there, if you wish to read as you sit with your special flower. Take this time to find within you your own gifts and beauty, honoring those gifts and that beauty with humility and gratitude, aware also of sharing our gifts with others. Let us now hear our sung benediction and a blessing to take with us into the coming week. Blessed be.
Eastern breezes bless you. Lift your spirits, make them fly. May the southern sun shine on you, warm your heart and help you try. May the western waters cleanse you, washing over all you feel. Northern earth be yours to stand in, ground you so you know what's real. Over all be strength and beauty, food and friends and music fine. Work you love and pleasant duty, love to make your spirit shine. All of these I wish upon you, multiply them 3 times 3. Draw a circle all around you, and forever blessed be.